Hey there, it's JohnBurry555 and welcome to my full review of The Mandalorian Chapter 17, The Apostate. So where should I begin? Because there's a lot that does go on this episode, but this is, well, for lack of a better term, a return to The Mandalorian after so long away. Sure, we got a little bit with The Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, and actually, the Book of Boba Fett is what makes the weakest part of this episode. Because the episode begins with a recap of seasons 1 and 2, but they don't recap how Grogu got back with Din. Nothing about that. I wish they did. That's the one major complaint I have with this episode, that they don't address how Grogu and Din reunited. Didn't have to be much. A line here or something to recap. That would have been good, but that unfortunately was not addressed. Well, actually it was, but barely. Basically Din says to the armor that he completed actually it might have been to Griff Karga. One of them, he said that he completed his request and the child came back to him, something like that. But that's not much. It's limited. They could have done much more. Something along the lines, met up, found a Jedi, and Grogu decided he wants to be with me rather than train with a Jedi. Something like that would have been better, I think. That would kind of explain it, but really, probably the weakest part of this episode is because of the Book of Boba Fett, which I didn't think was as bad as most people think, but I do agree that it was weak. But yeah, the Book of Boba Fett is what makes the weakest part of the episode, but the strengths of this episode far outshine that weakness. Like, we get confirmation that Din is he's more comfortable with droids than he used to be, but like the only droid he still truly trusts is the reprogrammed IG-86. I think I have his number right. That's reconfirmed to us. But what's actually probably one of the most interesting scenes, there's actually two of them, and both of them involve other Mandalorians besides Din. The first one has to do with the cult that he's a part of, still kind of unsure, but they're inducting another young child into the ranks, and the monster attacks during that, and Din's not there because, he's doing his own thing now, pretty much. But he comes, and he helps them stop the creature using his N1 Starfighter. But even though he helped save their lives, the armor still pretty much gave him the cold shoulder because he once took his helmet off. Also, that way he could look, so that way his adopted son could see him with his own eyes. The armor really doesn't care about that. At first I thought this was actually a flashback sequence. It wasn't, but probably Din went to a very similar ceremony when he first put his own helmet on. But it does show that the children of the Watch are still so set in their ways. Meanwhile, this contrasts with what we see with Bo-Katan. And there's a lot of things there, because Bo-Katan's the one who told Din that don't believe all the rumors he heard about the planet Mandalore to be true. And the armor still is like, yeah, the planet's cursed, glassed, no chance. And like a piece of evidence that shows that people can get on the planet Din found, is just hand waved away how he found it, trader, I believe is what it was. And the armor takes that as evidence that Mandalore is inhospitable. But at the end of the episode, when Din meets up with Bo-Katan again on her house's homeworld, fortress world, ancestral home, another planet in Mandalorian space, and she's defeated, not military defeated, but emotionally defeated. She's pretty much, I would say this, she's in depression. I'm no psychologist or that kind of stuff, a psychiatrist, but she appears depressed. She returned without the Darksaber, and sounds like most of the Mandalorians that used to have allegiance to her abandoned her and now are just being mercenaries, going back to the old ways, if you will. And I wonder if some of it she's maybe reflecting back on how the old ways keep on driving Mandalorians apart from each other, and was thinking how maybe, because at one time she was fighting against a new way for Mandalore herself. You wonder if she's doing some reflection, but you can tell she is depressed, and she blames it all because she didn't have the Darksaber. Well, having the Darksaber obviously is now what makes a leader. But perhaps that's why Din with the Darksaber will make a good leader, because he doesn't see the Darksaber really as a symbol of power the way Bo-Katan and many other Mandalorians have. But it's kind of interesting how even though Bo-Katan, she rejects the myths around around the helmets and all that. Like she doesn't she's a part of the group that leaving helmets on off doesn't really matter. Meanwhile, she's still all obsessed with the lore on the Darksaber and reveals it and sees that's the reason why she's failed as a leader, perhaps not realizing maybe there's some other things going on. Like maybe she doesn't feel she deserves it herself internally. Meanwhile, the children of the watch, like, oh, like the Darksaber they reveal, but they also, the helmets, like, oh, can't take helmets off. And actually, this all connects nicely in how the episode's title, The Apostate. An apostate is somebody who basically renounces or rejects a religious cult or the religion that they grew up in. Though not totally. I think what we're going to be seeing in Din's case is he thinks he's an apostate because he took his helmet off. No. I think if anything, we're going to see he's going to be an apostate, not because of that, but because he's going to realize how the rules that the Children of the Watch, the creed that the Children of the Watch specifically follow, is not the way forward for Mandalore and for the Mandalorian. That there's a better path forward that still honors their roots and their beliefs, but does not. What I think the word I'm looking for is that does not limit them. That does not, put artificial limitations on who's a Mandalorian. Think of this. If somebody knocked Din's helmet off, that would apparently make him an apostate. It's worse that he voluntarily did it. It's literally the armor in this episode describes it as worse. Not that it would have been okay if somebody else did it for him, but it's worse that he did it. So that's interesting. It's so dogmatic that accidents are not allowed to happen, apparently. It makes me wonder, what if somebody's helmet got knocked off during that battle with that creature early on? How would she respond? Probably she would have shunned them as well, the same way she's effectively shunning Din. Kind of showing how dogmatic lots of Mandalorians have become in different ways. So who knows how that's going to turn out, but maybe, hopefully, the Mandalorians will all find a way that's not so stuck up in the past. Perhaps. But really, we gotta talk about everything going on in Navarro, how it's much more prosperous than it used to be, because didn't go there because he wants IG-86 to help him explore Mandalore, even though IG-86 has been destroyed, because as I said earlier, that's the only droid he trusts. So we can definitely say he's more trustworthy of droids than he used to be, but he's not quite there yet. But at last, he's unable to repel IG-86, and in fact it starts attacking Grogu because it reverts back to its old programming. Though it's nice how then, even though he trusts IG-88 and wants IG-88 around for this, he does not hesitate to protect Grogu. So that, I think, was a very good scene there. But it does kind of show, in a way, kind of an overarching theme in all these interactions, how the characters who are focusing on the past or somehow trapped in the past, whether it be by programming or by beliefs or just by depression in the case of Bo-Katan, or even the pirates that I have not talked about yet, it all doesn't work out for them. They're trapped in the past. Meanwhile, Din, who's teetering with the idea of not being trapped by the past, he's still tugging on him, but he's also feeling the call to adventure, the hero's journey, if you will. He's still feeling that. He's somewhat answering, but he's still not quite there yet. He's having success. Navarro and Grief Karga, who are not rejecting the past, who are not necessarily rejecting the past, but who are rather moving beyond the past, are prospering. The characters who are not basically living in the past are moving forward, are achieving their goals. Meanwhile, all the characters who are somehow trapped in the past, whether it be they want to hold on traditions or something along those same lines, or programming, they're trapped and they're not accomplishing. As I alluded to the pirates, same thing. These pirates, they come to Navarro expecting things to be like the good old days. They don't get their one, so four of them end up getting shot because they try to shoot Grief Din and basically shoot up the city. So the one who that survived these, but now the pirates want revenge on Din. Well, they're trapped in the past. They want things to stay the way they were, and they fail. Meanwhile, Din successfully escapes with Grogu, and I think that's the main theme of this episode. The characters who are trapped in the past, whether it be by tradition, depression, programming, lack of imagination, they're unable to achieve the goals. Meanwhile, Din and Grief and the others who are embracing change, who are not letting themselves be trapped by the past fully, in Din's case, because he's not quite there yet, but he's probably going to get there. They're the ones who are achieving their aims. And I have a feeling we probably will see maybe a mini arc with Bo-Katan and her, kind of getting out of her depression and embracing the change as well. It's just an instinct. I could be wrong there. But there's one more thing I would like to discuss before this episode ends. Pearl Girl. We actually get Pearl Girl in this episode. It's a nice calm moment with Din and Grogu. They're just traveling through hyperspace, and Grogu is looking outside. Din's clearly taking a nap in hyperspace, but he gets to see the Pearl Girl flying in hyperspace around Din's starfight. Like, that is such a beautiful and calming scene. It was a good midpoint for the episode, because it really was the midpoint of the episode, midpoint of all the action, all the stuff. It was just a nice little bit of found family, being calm, resting, all that while traveling through hyperspace. And the Pearl Girl, come on, that has to be somehow a reference to Star Wars Rebels and Ezra Bridger, right? Right? We know Thrawn was mentioned previously, and we got whatever the Ahsoka show is going to do, which is probably going to involve Ezra somehow. So there's going to be some connections there. I don't know, but let's not worry about that stuff. The connected universe. Let's just look how nice, calm it was. It was just a calm moment for our main characters, and that's why that scene is probably the most beautiful scene in this episode. But I do hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please be sure to give this video a like, upvote, and share. Also, let me know in the comment section down below, what did you think of The Mandalorian Chapter 17, The Apostate? I would love to hear from you. Also, if you haven't done so already, consider subscribing to the channel and checking out any of the links down below. And as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the Force be with you, always.